All right, you're welcome along. It is Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock. We got a busy show ahead. John Giles going to be with us live at 7:30. You can get your texts in 53106. Going to be talking about Roy Hodgson's appointment at Watford. Roy Hodgson, 7 years younger than John Giles and going back into the Premier League once again. The potential of Frank Lampard going to Everton. What's going on with Antonio Conte and Tottenham and not getting any of those signings. All those up for debate with John Giles in around about 25 minutes from now. After 8, Tommy Walsh is going to be with us talking about the genius of TJ Reid after his heroics once again for Ballyhale at the weekend, and also looking ahead to the start of the Allianz Hurling League season. And then at 9 o'clock I'm going to be joined by the St Mirren manager Jim Goodwin, a former one-time Ireland international and one-time Celtic player, and went on to have a really good career in the lower leagues and is now a important figure in the Scottish game, managing St Mirren, managing Jamie McGrath for now, and we will talk to him about that and Jamie McGrath's future and much more besides. So get your text in 53106 at Off the Ball if you want to get in touch on Twitter. Richie McCormack, good evening.
Young Nathan, how are you?
I'm alright. Joe Molloy, how are you?
Hey gents, I like that lineup, Nathan. Like that lineup, very nice.
Thank you. Jim Goodwin is someone we want to get on for a while because listen, there's not many Irish managers working outside of Ireland right now. I know John Sheridan's gone back in at Oldham, so he's the only Irish manager in all 4 of the professional divisions in England, and Jim Goodwin's plying his trade at the moment with St Mirren. They're 8th in the Scottish Premiership table, but they're beat Aberdeen on Tuesday night, so they're only 3 points off getting in that top 6, which for St Mirren would be a massive achievement. He's someone whose career I always followed. I don't know if you've had this, where he's at November 81, I'm November 81, and when you were playing football as a kid, you were always looking around as to who were the best guys around the country the same age as you, and how far behind were you? I was a long way behind, but I remember at 15, 16, Jim Goodwin, John O'Shea, everybody was talking about these guys, and obviously he became part of Brian Kerr's team that won the European Championship at under 16 level. He was a centre-back partner with John O'Shea in that, and he kind of always were waiting for him to make that breakthrough, and it never really happened. He is a quite remarkable record where he played once for Celtic. Kenny Dalglish gave him a game right at the end of the season back in 2000, and he played once for Ireland, came on at the end of the Finland friendly, which was the first game after the 2002 World Cup, and he played for 10 minutes at the end of that. And he's brilliant talking about them, how actually, like, for him that was living the dream. He actually did it. There's no God, I was at Celtic and it never happened. I was in an Ireland squad and it was never happened. Actually has the jerseys, has all the memorabilia, and can say to his 8-year-old son, look what I did, which is such a refreshing outlook to be able to look back in your career with.
Absolutely, because he's still in the 1%. He still beats everybody at most tables around the pub, you know, if it's a show us your medals contest. I'm clinging to Johnny Sexton and Ronaldo. Now, I'm also a long way behind them both, but the fact that they're still playing is very good for my ego.
Yeah, there is nothing worse. I when I was that sort of 14, 15, 16 year age, I used to spend weeknights, weekends touring the country with my father, and he'd be bringing players from Mayo up to play for Belvedere and Stella Maris and going to international trials and all of that. And I was never at that level to really go to the trials, but you'd see all these guys. And I do remember going to see Jim Goodwin, who again was about 6'2" it felt at the time, and about 8 inches taller than me, and a man at 15, 16. I always remember going to an Ireland under 15 friendly and seeing Richard Dunn and Jason Gavin playing centre back at under 15s, both of them with tashes. I thought, wow. Both of them about 6'3" at this stage. I was like, nah, don't think this is ever going to happen for me.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think back. I had a mate who was a brilliant footballer and over at Man City as a teenager, and played with the Irish underage setup, and went to see a couple of his Ireland games, and it was Willow Flood, who was a real star at that age, and Willow Flood very memorably on a Monday Night Football got on for City and got man of the match against Norwich. I always remember it because I'd seen him, but geez, at underage, anyone who saw Willow Flood come through at Cherry Orchard or beyond would remember talent, like running the game, bossing the game. And when you watch him at that age, you kind of think, well, there's just no way he can't not make it. But of course, it's so ridiculously competitive, isn't it? He still made it. He's still a
this is much like Jim Goodwin. In a way, you kind of go, it didn't happen for Jim Goodwin. Yet he went off and he played for Stockport in League One, and he played for Scunthorpe in League One, and went back and played and won a League Cup in Scotland with St Mirren, and played 500 league games of professional football. And Willow Flood again, because he was like the buzz around Dublin at the time of a Willow Flood was ahead of a Stephen Ireland, and he goes and he plays 400 times professional football, but because it wasn't at Manchester City, it wasn't in the Champions League, you sort of think, where did it all go wrong? Whereas I think more and more we're going to appreciate those type of careers. You look at Owen Doyle coming back to St. Pat's, and we had him on the show a few months back, and like the amount of goals he scored around League One, League Two is just insane. Yet if he'd come back and done that in the League of Ireland, we'd be raving about him for years and saying he should have been in Ireland squads, but you just sort of let it go. So it just probably rams home, Richie, that we should give the Glen Whelans of this world a bit more respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the lower leagues, like it's still, like we mentioned about being an Ireland international, it's still like the 0.05% or whatever will ever manage that. But like even managing to play professional football at any level, somewhere like England, is like, it's an incredible achievement for a footballer. And like the path, like my locality is littered with people who never fully got that opportunity. Like there was a young lad I think he was in the same year as me in primary school, Michael Foley, who was one of the proper prospects at Liverpool, went over to Liverpool at quite a young age. Kevin Keegan had spotted him while still Newcastle manager and said this lad's going to be the guy who's going to come through and run the Liverpool midfield for years to come. And injuries kind of took their toll on him, and it never happened for him. Richie Partridge, I think, was a couple of years ahead of me in secondary school. He obviously, we had him on the programme a couple of months ago, he had his own injury problems as well. And then you think of that game that Jim Goodwin played in. I think Graham Barrett made his debut in that match as well, or he certainly made one of his few caps in that game too, and things just went badly wrong for him. So to actually forge a career and for it to be, a decade long maybe or more in the Football League, and to go on into management, then like it's quite an achievement. And we should praise the likes of Owen Doyle, Paddy Madden, who's gone over after getting a cap for himself, of course, a few years back, and gone over and forging these careers in the lower leagues. There's a relative of mine, a very distant relative of mine, played in Wembley finals for Swindon in the last few years too, and these are achievements. You mightn't see them on Monday Night Football. I'm trying. His name is McCormack. I can't. Is McCormack? Yeah, he's McCormack, and he played for
close family member.
I have to actually look.
Yeah.
Oh
Alan
God,
McCormack.
no! It's like it's distant. It's like he was from Skerries. My dad had a side of the family that was out from Skerries direction, and he was part of that.
Right.
So yeah, like we shouldn't forget about these people who are doing pretty well for themselves. They're probably doing a lot well better than we are, and playing football for a living.
Excuse me, Richie. Sorry, apologies. I thought you were done. Nathan, just to get you in trouble then, Glen Whelan, his career, does that trump any GAA player of a similar decade? Is Glen Whelan a greater Irish sports person? And you're the only one answering this. Richie and I are pleading the fifth. Is Glen Whelan's sporting career more impressive than Henry Shefflin's, Bernard Brogan's, Stephen Cluxton's?
Joe.
Answer the question.
Joe, you're going for the ultimate clickbait headline here. I don't think they're comparable because...
And yet I'm asking you to compare them, so proceed.
Henry there's different pressures, isn't there? There's different pressures at the level Glen Whelan was playing at, to the level Henry Shefflin was playing at. So I just don't think they're comparable. But I do think that Whelan clearly gets a massive amount of disrespect for playing at the level he did and the hundreds of Premier League appearances that he had. Maybe it's Paul Mannion and the talent he had as a soccer player. Like we saw what he achieved as a GAA player. What would he have needed to achieve as a soccer player, Joe, to match his achievements as a Dublin footballer?
Well, that's a ridiculous question. I'm not going to answer that.
We got the full football show with Jim Goodwin. Not shying his ambitions. He's only 40, so he's talking about one day the Ireland job, and feels that Stephen Kenny has maybe opened doors for managers and people like him. And also we're going to touch on the Jamie McGrath situation. I still, a St Mirren player, feels that maybe some of the advice he's been getting over the last while hasn't been the greatest, but knows at a club like St Mirren, and really good on that actually, at a club like St Mirren, the balancing act of you need to show players actually that if they come, you're going to let them leave, that we're not going to handcuff you here, that if somebody comes in, we will let you go and flourish. So Jamie McGrath, he doesn't go now, he will be going during the summer. So that's coming up after 9 o'clock. I sort of buried the lead here, but Tommy Walsh is coming up after 8 o'clock. Breaking news, Tommy Walsh's chickens, 4 of them, and they've just started laying eggs.
Because they reach a certain age, you mean?
I don't know. He just said just this week they started laying eggs.
Okay, I presume they lay them all year round once they start.
Well, so this is a little business he's got going. They have names, but he wouldn't tell us what they were.
Henry, TJ.
Come on.
I know. I thought he might let the off the ball listeners name one of them, but no. got very stum. So now I am definitely more than interested in Tommy Walsh's chickens. So yeah, they've started laying eggs. He's just going to start putting them up at the end of the road. You can go and pick them up whenever you want. Also puts TJ Reid on a level with Henry, with Eddie Kerr, with DJ Carey. That is the level that TJ Reid has managed to reach over the last few years, which, watching him on Sunday at 34 doing what he did, is hardly surprising, Joe.
No, outrageous, absolutely outrageous. I mean, he described his shot at the end as luck, just a bit of power and luck, but I mean, I think he's doing himself a disservice. Again, it's one of these impossible questions. I presume Tommy will find it impossible to separate those 3 or 4 that he mentioned, but I think a lot of us can go so far as to agree that he's in that bracket for sure. I mean, how do you split him and Henry on a given day? I don't know, but I mean, even just to have that conversation is amazing. It speaks to what TJ Reid has done, and I would say maybe Henry a bit more celebrated across his career. TJ in the last 4 or 5 years.
I guess because of the time that Henry was there and been a part of the greatest team of all time, which TJ was a part of, which I still think that TJ Reid is a young guy, like he's 34. He has a medal from 07, even though he didn't play in the final, but scored 4 points off the bench in 08, came off the bench again in 09. So he was a part of that great Kilkenny side. But I guess Henry was the leader. He was the icon of that time. And while TJ's helped Kilkenny win All-Irelands that maybe no other county would have won, it probably is only the last 3-4 years where he's been the man. He has been, without question, the man in that Kilkenny side. So, listen, if Tommy Walsh is putting him in that bracket, I don't think any of us can really argue too much with it. 53106 is the text number. The Newsround is brought to you by Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors. And some big news, Richie. Katie Taylor is going to Madison Square Garden.
She is finally confirmed that Katie Taylor will headline Madison Square Garden, the 20,000 seat main arena. The undisputed lightweight champion of the world will face the 7-weight world champ Amanda Serrano at the iconic New York venue on April 30th. The pair were scheduled to meet in May of 2020, but those plans, as were many, were scuppered by the pandemic. It'll be the first time ever that 2 women have headlined the main arena at MSG.
This is huge, Joe. It is the main arena at Madison Square Garden. Ronan Mullen, our boxing aficionado, was saying they do have the smaller theatre at Madison Square Garden, which you would expect for a fight like this, but actually they feel that they can sell out Madison Square Garden, the full thing, 20,000 people, and it's without question, I think, the biggest fight in the history of women's boxing and one of the biggest fights for Irish boxing in decades. So April 30th, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, this is as good as it gets.
Yeah, you kind of have to remind yourself that when Katie Taylor was a girl, she was having to sneak into clubs to box and do it under secrecy almost, and there was no women's boxing at Olympic Games, and there was certainly nothing like this. It's kind of miraculous, really, and wonderful that she's continuing to break boundaries. And so this is amazing. There'll be 20,000 plus at this fight in New York. She's a trendsetter. She's historic. I mean, she will be looked back on as the trendsetter for this sport. So I just hope she bloody wins it now. And that will really cap off the career. I mean, a win here, that's kind of most boxes ticked. I don't know what her retirement plans are. Does she ever even dare think about that word? But after this, what else is there, So this is the cherry on the icing on the cake, and it's amazing. It's kind of extraordinary that she came from this little island and she's leading this sport. So I can't wait for the fight. I mean, obviously, I'm available to go, Nathan, if we're on the...
Yeah, Ronan Mullen's like, I've been covering this sport for years.
I'll let Ronan go.
Like, this is sort of, this is more the glamour side of it. You want to be there for, the nights where they're making it. Like, you wouldn't enjoy this, Ronan. You wouldn't enjoy Madison Square Garden at all.
This is trashy.
This is like it's Jake Paul, it's Logan Paul, it's showbiz. Like, it's not the stuff you want to be a part of at all. Leave it to the other guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will actually talking to Ronan, he, without putting words in his mouth, I mean, nice to misquote you, Ronan, as opposed to us misquoting sports people for a change. But he certainly, in comparison with a year ago, Taylor, by dint of age and everything else, is maybe not where she was a year ago. So, this fight is going to be a very close run thing, really an epic. And I guess with all sport, you want a bit of jeopardy, and there's lots of jeopardy with this fight.
Surely Gregory Peck is a great name for chicken, says Owen. I don't know if we want to go down the chicken naming route, because really it's pointless. Tommy has named his chickens already. Now, unless of course he's expanding his business and wants to name the hundreds of chickens he will ultimately own in the coming years. But you're right, Gregory Peck is a great name for a chicken, but like really this is where it ends, Owen. But thank you for your submission to 53106. Australian Open, Ashley Barty is through to the final.
Yeah, she's the first Australian woman, believe it or not, since 1980 to reach the final of the Australian Open. Wendy Turnbull, the last. This year's top seed, beat Madison Keys 6-1, 6-3 today. Barty will play another American in the final, that being Danielle Collins. The 28-year-old beat 7-seed Iga Swiatek in straights. Collins was asked afterwards if her years of playing colleges tennis will have prepared her for the partisan crowd she'll encounter on Saturday.
I sure hope so. I think in college you get used to having an adverse crowd quite often. I always enjoyed it. I love playing with energy, whether it's for me, against me, neutral. I just love hearing people and having that fun energy. And so I hope that it's prepared me well, but we'll find out. This is going to be a little bit bigger stadium than some of the college matches I competed in, but I'm just going to try to do the best I can and embrace every moment.
I expect it's going to be a little bit better. I know they get into their college sports in America, but going up against the most partisan Australian crowd possible is going to be something else for Danielle Collins. The league is starting. We're still January, but the Allianz Football League is starting this weekend, and it is this real condensed calendar. So teams, by and large, it seems, are going to be taking it seriously right from the off. They want to hit the ground running, and the starting 15s are starting to come in. Mayo amongst them.
Yeah, and Jason Doherty is to make his first Mayo appearance since the summer of 2019. He's been named at full forward for Sunday's Allianz Football League opener with Donegal. Doherty suffered a knee injury in his last meeting with Donegal back in the Super 8s in 2019 and injured the other knee during the course of his recovery. There's a league debut for Donnacha McHugh in that Mayo side and a first league start as well for Aidan Orme.
So it's come around pretty quickly, Joe. I know it's always this time of the year, but with the fact that championship for a lot of teams starts mid-April, you do really want to get a bit of momentum. At Mayo, it's a bit of a mix and match at the moment. There's still some players coming back. They're obviously waiting on Oisin Mullen and Killian O'Connor, and it's a tough old game. Like, that Division 1 is properly stacked this year.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it, I have to say, more so than in a lot of recent years, for a variety of reasons. Dublin, I'm going to try and watch every Dublin game I can. I'm fascinated, absolutely fascinated to see how they respond this year. I fully suspect, I have to say, they're going to win the All-Ireland of 2022 with a vengeance and with anger. And that is very much how I see this summer going. But I'm going to be watching them carefully just to copper fasten my view, because definitely standards slipped in very small, minute ways last year with Dublin. And I do fully anticipate that the Kilkennys of the group, the Fentons of the group, and Desi Farrell, to be fair, will look at that Mayo match and say, that really did not feel good. That is not happening again. So the Dubs, I'll be watching every step of the way, more so in some respects than in recent years when they were just a well-oiled machine. And then, of course, there's Mayo. I don't know what you think. Like, I would have said when Horan took over, such a brilliant manager, he probably had 2022 or 2023 in mind as when they might make an All-Ireland final and really challenge again. And they've had this weird experience of being there twice, ahead of schedule probably. So I don't really know what to expect from Mayo or to what extent they'll kick on this year.
Well, Mayo have got Galway first up in the championship, so they need something from the league. You do not want to be going into that off the back of another relegation. You want to prove actually week in, week out you can compete with Dublin and Donegal and Kerry and Tyrone. So I would agree with you. I felt that Mayo were probably in a period of transition. Talking to people back home, they seem to think actually that the talent was there, and that there was definitely, it wasn't a case of it coming a year or two too early, and that actually with the players stepping away you would worry for the depth in the squad. But I think I'd be with you. I think Dublin are the ones to watch, because if the league were to go wrong, badly wrong for Dublin, you would get the sense that something is wrong, is gone inside the camp. Yeah. But I'd be with you. I have full respect for Owen Sheehan's power rankings. I think you look at Dublin as number one, and then Mayo, Kerry, Tyrone could beat Dublin, but probably nobody else. And then below that, you have 6 or 7 teams who could beat the other 3. So, yeah, it's we know what sort of a dogfight the league is, and it's why we want to see it in the summer. That actually Mayo, Donegal in the first week of the championship, Richie, even in a league format, is huge, because they're two sides who are in that sort of 3rd to 6th ranking that you start with a win and you're flying then for the spring. So yeah, these are big games right from the off.
Yeah, you kind of figure that there's I think there might even be an element still of shadow boxing. Hold on, I'm gonna have the dog out here.
All up. Heard all the chicken talk. Cluck Morris. We are going down this route, it seems. Lads, a great name for Tommy's chicken business will be That's a Foul. That's Andrew in Cork.
That would be a great name. Who does Owen Sheehan have as number 1, by the way?
I assume he is. Dublin.
Okay.
Got to accept it. Chris Hemsworth is a good chicken name, to be fair, says Alan. It's not bad either. Here's a sign that I once had a different life and wasn't always like this. I once met Chris Hemsworth in Sydney, and I have a photo where both of us are topless, and it's not as bad as you would think.
Well, I think we would all like to see that
Can we
photo.
see that photo?
No, that's not going to happen. It's a long time ago for both of us. Our careers have gone a slightly different direction since then.
What they want.
Yeah, that was a tough time in Hemsworth's life.
Yeah, it sure was. What else you got for us, Richie?
The dog has been released. 9-1 shot. Longhouse Poet won the Tiestes Chase at Gorham Park today. The Willie Mullins trained Franco de Port was beaten into second, with Mr. Fog Patches third at 11-1. Well, Padraig Harrington's best of the Irish on 2 under par following the opening day of Golf's Dubai Desert Classic. The former European Ryder Cup captain shot a round of 70 today. Shane Lowry, Rory McIlroy, Jonathan Caldwell, all of them carded 1 under par rounds of 71, and they're 6 off the lead of Denmark's Joachim B. Hansen.
Golf Weekly is up right now. otbsports.com/Golf Weekly. Sign up on Patreon. Really good episode this week. It's brilliant to see Harrington, and it's one of the great things about golf. Harrington has turned 50. He's going to be splitting his year between the European Tour, the PGA Tour, and the Champions Tour, where there's no cuts. It's easy money. All his mates are there. He's the rookie. He's the young guy, the fresh guy, and he seems to be really excited about the opportunity. Yet here he is, though, still with the peak of the European Tour and able to outscore Lowry and McIlroy.
Yeah, it's a very Harrington thing, isn't it? And you've made the point, and I tend to agree with you, that Phil Mickelson and Harrington were always very likely to break the oldest major winner record. Phil did it last year. Harrington finished 4th in that very same tournament. I still think he's going to give us a Sunday at a US Open, particularly an Open, maybe even a PGA on the right course. I still think he's going to give us a Sunday which will blow our socks off. So, and do you know, if anyone is in any way interested in golf, even casually, the European Tour, the DP World Tour as it's now called, I suppose, put up a video just last week. Shane Lowry and Harrington have these very fabled, celebrated chipping contests the week of tournaments, and they're always mentioned, have been in dispatches for years. And so the European Tour decided to do the obvious and record one of these, and it's really good, and you get a sense of the relationship they have, and I guess what good practice it is as well. So yeah, it's a very Harrington thing that post Ryder Cup, when he should be winding down, he's top 20 last week and best of the Irish today.
Myself and Joe have similar challenges, but both of us end up crying after about 15 minutes as to how terrible it all is.
Broken clubs, tears.
Irish international coming back close to home, Richie?
Yeah, Diane Caldwell has signed for Manchester United Women until the end of the season. She's the first Irish player to have signed for Manchester United. The Republic of Ireland defender joins from North Carolina Courage, where she was a teammate, of course, of Denise O'Sullivan. United currently even sit third in the Women's Super League, and Caldwell could make her debut at Arsenal next week.
Did you see her statement?
Go on.
Oh, it's amazing. So Diane Caldwell released a statement on the back of signing for Manchester United. She's 33 now, I think. Maybe 34. Don't want to do her disservice. Certainly 33, I think.
33, yeah.
And so her statement, words to the effect are that, a bit like anyone of that vintage, supported Manchester United all her life, saw the great teams, in love with the club. And she said her entire life has been leading up to signing for Manchester United, and she just cannot believe it's happened. And she was unveiled at Old Trafford. And it's kind of an amazing thing. When you consider that obviously when she was watching Manchester United winning trebles and winning all those leagues and Ferguson and everything, there wasn't even a Manchester United women's team. So again, parallels with Taylor in how much the world has changed in the last 15 years. That's kind of like dream come true stuff for her.
Yes, brilliant photographs as well up on the Manchester United Twitter, as you say, have been unveiled at Old Trafford today. Just to finish up, Richie, then, a title partner, an interesting title partner for the Women's Six Nations.
Yeah, entertainment platform TikTok has become the title partner of the Women's Six Nations Championship. It is the first time that the tournament will have a title partner, with the deal set to run until 2025. Ireland start their campaign against Wales in March. TikTok will also become an official partner to the Men's Six Nations tournament, as well as the Autumn Nations series.
Never take off, Joe.
Have you joined TikTok?
Of course I've joined TikTok.
I don't say this lightly. It's the most addictive of them all. It's frightening.
The worst.
I had to get off it.
You're gone, are you?
Your units of time were like, there's an hour gone. You just can't get off it. The algorithm works you out in 10 seconds flat.
Yeah. It's a big deal, though, for the Women's Six Nations. I'd be interested to see what they do with it as well over the next couple of years. But you're right, Joe. To say it's addictive is putting it mildly. I think it surpassed YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all of those already in terms of the amount of time people spend on it.
Yeah, it's taken over.
And everybody under the age of 20 is like, God, these old guys. These old guys. Oh my God. I had to delete it. It's addictive. That's the fun of it. That's why we're on it. It is addictive. We like it being addictive.
I'd say also a bunch of them said we've got to get off TikTok if these lads are on.
Yeah, well, we're on to another new thing if these guys are hanging around, which is fair enough. Richie, thank you as always.
Nice one.
Joe, good stuff.
There's lads.
All right, once again, we got ourselves a cash machine winner.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
So Ronan O'Shea was relaxing. He was watching the horse racing on TV in South Kerry when he took our call just after 3 o'clock, and he knew the correct amount in the cash machine. Won him